Welcome to SwitchCorner, my name is Alex and today we're going to be taking a look at Azure Striker Gunvolt 3 on the Nintendo Switch. Now it's a title I've been excited for since announcement and it's been built around the Switch capabilities, always good to see. But how does it play and does it maintain the now expected series quality? Well, that's what I'm here to find out, so hit subscribe, join us here on SwitchCorner for reviews and deals near daily. And let's get started. Story then, and we are introduced to a new character by the name of Kirin. She is working on behalf of an organisation that investigates, let's say, evil forces. During a search, however, she stumbles upon Gunvolt in what's known as a dragon state. She frees him and now you must work together to take down this opposition. It's an out there storyline with a huge cast introduced throughout, and this is very much a high level overview. This organisation though, the one you're fighting back against, they're known as a Thames. They've invaded your home and you are now pushing back. Along the way though, you'll fight many in dragon states that on defeat, they will be drafted into your forces as peers. It's a surprisingly in-depth story with a non-stop flow of dialogue, and between missions you can take it one step further with a chat option to talk at base and even get optional briefings before missions to add further context. I enjoyed the cast, so it's an over-the-top story as I said, but it balances these high stakes and then humour to great effect. For example, Gunvolt throughout, for the majority at least, takes on the form of a dog. Finally, the game immediately has something added called Story Mode Plus. You can turn this off. It's essentially though additional dialogue and context, but it's not absolutely necessary and the game can be experienced without this, though I did leave it in its place as I'm always down for more in this universe. I'd almost see this as a director's cut. Gameplay then, and this is the expected fast-paced 2D action platforming. You know, it's very much what we expect from the series and its Mega Man influence. Lead protagonist Kirin wields two weapons, a sword as well as the ability to throw talisman. These act as additional damage but also as a targeting system for subsequent attacks. You can also then dash instantly to this, which embodies the series' core almost think acrobatic quality, and that was always a go-to attack for me. Defeating bosses then, that leads to new abilities, think a downward strike, upward strike, almost think teleportation as well. They all prove beneficial and you'll have to maximise each of these to get to that end game. Gunvolt then is not an optional character, let's say player 2 as such here, as we've seen in past entries. Rather, he is almost a special that you can call into battle to replace Kirin. Throughout a stage, basically though, you'll be building up the Fetters Gorge. This dictates how long Gunvolt can stick around for, but is as overpowered as you would expect, and is going to be especially useful through the game's many boss encounters. Think here though, he, like Kirin, can target, but this time with a gun. His all-out attack then lightning burst. These home in on this. He can fly by simply tapping the jump button, which is a epic kind of character trait. Finally, running out of the Fetters Gorge, you'll revert back to that Kirin state. Alongside this then, both characters have special attacks that can be called into action to land some devastating blows. This is all then reinforced with the series' new image pulses. There's over 150 packed in here and they come in two forms. That's going to be both skill and passive. Essentially, these are buffers for our characters or the ability to summon those bosses you saved in battle. It's a simple system, but it adds a new layer of strategy to encounters when you can switch in and out what characters will be acting on your support or what buffers you will be utilising. These can then also be leveled up between missions, and there's an opening one at Lumen under passive, which makes the game a whole lot easier. It's going to be a great starting point as you get to grips with the gameplay and kind of the waves of enemies ahead of you. What this essentially does is it negates damage, but at the cost of the talisman. These are actually signified in the lower left of the screen. You get 10 at a time. Reloading is simple, though fortunately just tap down twice on the stick or D-pad. Alongside this then, we do see the return of Lumen. When activated with Kudos, she will support you in battle. Additionally, should you fall, there is a chance at revival. Finally, for your character, you may also notice levels in here, so that's experience, and that will be building up your HP meter. Stages and enemies then are for the most part well designed. They vary greatly from moment to moment, and they are built around the new skill set that Kirin brings to the table. Like entries before it, it's really mastering that ability to speed through a location, and in the case of this entry, that's really a combination of melee combat, talisman tagging, and a whole lot of dashing. The end of each stage also reinforces this with a timer breaking down your run. I just really enjoy the enemy variety though, from the fast and powerful like ninjas to tanks that can take a beating and deal huge damage, but in return and as a compromise are incredibly slow. A particular highlight for me was an ocean based level that had you jumping from platform to platform with instant death below you. It's not just about finding that next platform to land on, but how can you leverage your enemies to kind of, propel your traversal. This could have actually been really frustrating as well if it was not for the incredibly tight controller setup. As I said then as well, that combat can lead to traversal not only in your enemies and connecting with them, but also you can connect to objects around the world that will allow you to propel yourself towards them. Some even provide things like gravity boosts for out of reach areas. Then there's going to be plenty of collectibles to find, and then there's going to be abilities as well, such as wall jumps. It can be absolutely overwhelming, especially as it introduces new combos so quickly, but stick with it and you'll find an incredibly rewarding experience. When it comes to boss encounters then, my first playthrough I did maximize Gunvolt and he destroyed everyone in moments. The majority comprise of 3 health bars, each representing a phase of that boss, but they all add their own unique spin on combat and will challenge you in different ways. Think underwater creatures, those that bury themselves, or those that are the flying variety, and that's just naming a few of the ones packed in. You can also expect then on level completion to not only unlock new pulses but get a score and a rating. This will be a great reason to dive back in, face all of that action over again, because realistically a single run here for me, that first one was around 4 hours. A good chunk of this as well was experimenting with pulses, upgrading them using the in-game currency, and even exchanging a dialogue thanks to the chat option at base. If that's not for you, however, you can probably cut that runtime down quite a bit. You can also then on completion jump back in and chase those high scores, those grades, and continue to uncover further unlocks without losing any of your progress so far. Overall, very few issues. I wouldn't say it's a huge diversion from what we know for the series, and I will add here some of the new pulses. Sometimes a challenge to really understand the impact they make, but overall I'm impressed. I had fun. The only thing I really did note, it's quite a bit easier than the prior 2 entries. I think that's because of how overpowered Gunvolt is, so I would suggest here head back into this one without the Lemon Pulse set in place to get a true brutal run ahead of you. Also then, Kirin, good character, but a moveset, it doesn't quite have the flexibility I've been used to from past entries. I had fun though. I think these are mostly minor criticisms, and it feels like a suitable 3rd entry. It just somewhat, if anything, overall kind of delivers this solid experience that feels on the safe side in its implementation, and of course that risk taking around new mechanics. The adjustments are nice, but I wouldn't call them game changing. Graphically then, having this game built around the Nintendo Switch's capabilities is immediately apparent on a visual front. It runs flawlessly, and everything from the pixel work to the cutscenes, these are mostly hand-drawn in style. They look stunning. It's just incredibly crisp in its resolution, and no matter how manic the combat gets, it never struggles. The same can be said in handheld as well. This is a game that's always been known for its flashy nature, and that is very much the case here as Kirin dashes, slashes, Gunvolt flies. Enemy variety is really good too. They come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, and of course speed. It's just all particularly impressive as it comes together. We're pulling off a special ability. The screen is filling with these different visual effects. The enemies are all approaching, and then Gunvolt just lets out an electrical attack. There's very few games that can, I guess, match that, visceral energy that it displays in its action. One complaint I do have though, dialogue is accompanied with obnoxious text boxes and character portraits. They look fantastic, honestly, but when it's actually in the gameplay and not just a simple cutscene where they are fine, they often obscure your view of the action. Sometimes I was battling enemies or bosses with zero line of sight, and it can be pretty frequent. Fortunately though, I will say this, around an hour into the game, I realised in the options you can make these disappear, and I would strongly suggest that you do that. Rely on the audio instead. They are stylish, but they just absolutely impact the experience, so jump into the pause menu and look for the New Game Plus options. Audio finally, and it's fully voice acted, which is great to see. That is including English. You can also switch this to Japanese should you prefer. This would however be difficult just given the issue I faced with text boxes obscuring the action. The acting though is top quality throughout, and it's reinforced with a huge variety of sound effects for locations and attacks. Music finally, top quality stuff. It's one I'll happily listen to offline from the game now for years to come. It just embodies that futuristic tone while keeping it upbeat and intense. Overall, no complaints for the audio from me. It is exactly what you want to see. I will reinforce here as well for audio. Just want to say this again, some of the best voice acting I've heard from this team pretty much ever since picking up their games. So the final verdict, and fans, this is a must by. Newcomers, you could jump in here as well. Kirin acts as a lead that knows very little too, but it is going to be harder to recommend. I mean, why not experience this now fantastic trilogy in full? The game's new systems then, and switching ability, it works while keeping in line with what we do expect from the series, but again I would say at the same time it is very safe in the risks it takes, and these changes, I wouldn't say they're minor, but they're definitely not game changing. I am a fan though, and even with some of its issues, I'm happy to have this one in the library, and I hope they continue to expand upon this world. For me though, today it's a great 8 out of 10. I cannot get enough of this Mega Man-like experience, and when it gets going, few can match its speed and its intensity. Will you be adding this one to the library then, or holding onto that cash? With that then, hit subscribe, join us here on SwitchCorner for reviews and deals near daily, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.